So Matt Sydal is officially All Elite. Sydal has appeared on All Elite Wrestling since his debut in AEW All Out this year. He was a surprise entrance in the AEW Casino Battle Royale and worked primarily on Dark and a handful of Dynamite shows. He wasn't under contract with AEW and was working some Ring of Honor dates. Sydal, however, wrapped those up with Ring of Honor in October, and now he is All Elite. If you remember Sydal under his former ring name of Evan Bourne, he was part of he won the Tag Team Championships in 2011 with Kofi Kingston. He's appeared on Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, and New Japan. He has held belts for Ring of Honor with Christopher Daniels and also won the Impact Grand Championship and X Division belt in Impact Wrestling. If you're a super wrestling nerd, you know about the Dark Side of the Ring episodes on Vice. Well, it's reported back in October that production for the third season of the hit Vice show, Dark Side of the Ring, has begun. The series focuses on the greatest tragedies and misfortunes which have taken place under the banner of pro wrestling. With its first two series reaching record numbers of viewers for Vice TV, it did very well for them. There has been much speculation about what topics the third season might cover, but with various reports had hinted at potential episode subjects. Dave Meltzer recently reported on Wrestling Observer Radio that producers have confirmed content for 8 episodes so far, with himself being interviewed for a number of episodes. They haven't asked me yet. PW Insider reports that 4 episodes will be centered around the lives of Jake Roberts, which he has got a crazy life. Rockin' Robin, don't remember him, Sam Houston, and Grizzly Smith. Another episode will document the Hulkamania phenomenon and its link to the infamous steroid abuse scandal in the early 90s. I do remember that. Earlier in the year, the producers behind the show said they'd like to focus on international stories, and it seems that another subject they decided on is the infamous Collision in Korea event. If you remember, Collision in Korea was a joint event between New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW, which took place in North Korea in 1995. The event was a source of series of controversy, and it remains the only wrestling event to ever take place in North Korea. The show has set a world attendance record, although nearly all the spectators were forced to attend by the Korean government, because they're not nice over there. But somebody is his buddy, who is now a former president of the United States. Eric Bischoff noted in his 83 Weeks podcast that he was interviewed by DSTR Vice producers, likely in connection with the Collision in Korea episode, since Bischoff played a pivotal role in its organization. He also noted that he was interviewed about the death of Brian Pillman, which that's been a rumored one too. 14 new episodes of the TV show will be commissioned by Vice TV, episodes scheduled to premiere in late 2021, and I can't wait for that. They were fantastic. I watched them all. Looking forward to season 3. WWE reportedly passed on signing new AEW talent Jade Cargill. During this past week, we saw indie star Jade Cargill make her AEW debut when she confronted Cody Rhodes and Brandi Rhodes, and then likely she might appear with Shaquille O'Neal. We remember the whole thing. According to Dave Meltzer, in a recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Cargill actually had a WWE tryout back in April of 2019 in the same WWE Performance Center tryout class that featured current NXT superstars Emily Alzas of Titan Games fame. But she wasn't signed and no contract talks were made. Quote, just based on her look and athletic ability, I'm surprised WWE didn't sign her, but they did a complete tryout and there must have been something they didn't like. Close quote. That's from Meltzer. Prior to signing with AEW, Jade Cargill was a fitness model and she played basketball for the University of Jacksonville. I know somebody who goes there. She was trained by QT Marshall at his Nightmare Factory Wrestling School and at the Face to Face Wrestling School by Richard Borg and Heath Slater. So WWE passed on her. Could she be a big star in AEW? We will find out. During a recent edition of the Wrestling Observer Forum, Meltzer was asking a question by fans about the absence of top AEW star, the Exalted One, Mr. Brodie Lee. He hasn't even been on nothing, nowhere to be found. Which Meltzer responded that Brodie Lee has been out of in-ring action due to an injury. He mentioned that Brodie Lee possibly sustained an ankle injury. Lee last appeared for AEW on the October 7th episode of Dynamite when he faced Cody Rhodes in a dog collar match. No word yet on how long the Exalted One will be out of action, but updates and additional information will be made available once we got it on ProWrestlingNewsHub.com. Early estimates pay-per-view buys for AEW Full Gear are in. From the November 7th pay-per-view, Meltzer reported that early numbers indicate the pay-per-view looks to be about the same as AEW All Out in September and AEW Revolution in February. He noted, quote, domestic buys were lower than those shows, but overseas buys were higher. It should be around 100,000 when it's all said and done, close quote. He pointed out that last year's AEW Full Gear was the lowest number the promotion had done since it started. The feeling behind the scenes was the buys were low due to going up against college football on Saturday nights. Doing a pay-per-view in the small fall months makes it challenging to draw buys. AEW All Out did around 100,000 buys last year, while AEW Full Gear in November 2019 drew also an estimated 100,000 buys. Revolution pulled between 100 and 105,000 pay-per-view buys. This year's AEW or Nothing and All Out were also around 100,000. Of course, this was the pay-per-view with the World Championship Jon Moxley-Eddie Kingston match, which according to a lot of people, because of Eddie Kingston is why they got it. So AEW pulls in about 100,000. If you figure 600,000 to 800,000 people watch AEW on a weekly basis, and 100,000 of those buy pay-per-views every quarter, which I think is great. And those are great numbers for AEW.